Welcome to the Love Language Leadership Summit. I am Shannon Wooten, and with me today I have host of the Burnout to Breakthrough podcast, NLP Practitioner, spiritual life coach and hypnotherapist, business strategist and mindset money mentor, breathwork and Reiki healer, and there's more, alchemy mentor, my very dear friend, and one of the most organically, authentically vibrant, you're going to get what I mean as soon as she pops her face on here, individuals I have ever met, Erin Porter. Thank you for being here.
Yay! Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Yay! So when I originally set out to do this summit, and I've been sharing with all of you, if you're tuning in now, whether it's via YouTube or in some format audibly, I invite you to please go back and listen to the first episode of the summit. It's me explaining to you what the impetus for spawning this conversation was. And I felt very strongly it was time that we began having a conversation about love. And I wanted to have this conversation because I believe that we approach love these days from a perspective of there's really no place for it. It's something that we feel, but talking about it from almost a deprecating way is not something that I've been experiencing. It's either too frilly, it takes us out of our strategy, it takes us out of, execution, and I disagree. I believe that love is a very powerful tool that we all have available to us because we are all love. And because Erin is just such a bright lighthouse of an individual, I couldn't imagine not having her participate in this event.
I'm so excited. I'm like, I really don't know what I've gotten myself into, but I'm ready.
Yes.
I was thinking that when we jumped on, I was like, man, I don't actually know what we're doing, so I'm excited.
Yes, and that is, I really want to honor you and all of the speakers for taking this on because, as I said, if you go back and watch the first episode, you'll hear me tell you why I decided to format it this way. And none of the speakers have been provided the questions prior to. I actually have a list of 8 questions and where the conversation goes. I picked my top 3 and what I believe to be the most fruitful for that conversation. So Erin has no idea what she's gotten herself into, and this is the glory of her being my friend, but also I feel really representative of the type of leader that you are. So that leads me to my first question. What made you say yes to contributing to this?
That's a great question. I literally, I walked down to where my apartment complex is. I was like, did I miss maybe something that I was supposed to maybe just think about beforehand? So I was listening to your voice messages and I was like, nope. And I'm like, that's why I love you so much, is because it's just so authentic. It's so real. And if it's Shannon and she's spreading some message around, I assume there was something with love and support in that way. I was like, I'm fucking in. I'm like, I don't need to know the how. And I think that's what we so often do is we get into our heads in this place. I need to know all the answers. I need to be prepared. And I need to have everything together rather than just letting ourselves be ourselves. So I was like, all right, fuck it. Whatever it's going to be, if we're going to have fun, you're a beautiful soul, how you provide such a mission and message in the work that you do. And I know it's also heart-centered. So yeah, that was me being that I'm in, but it's funny that you asked that because I literally was just like, what am I doing?
And I feel like that is such a direct reflection of love, right? Because sometimes we get into a relationship and we have no idea that it's going to evolve into a love situation where we feel that or we're embodying that for that person. And love has those attributes too, right? Once we get into love, we still don't know where the direction of it's going to go. And if that were the case, so many people wouldn't be getting divorced, right? We can fall in love and we can fall out of love. And it's not so much about the how. We still all run readily available, love, I want love. We still all run towards it, knowing that there's a bit of risk involved with love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And something that someone said to me, one of my mentors, who's like, as you grow in a relationship, that person, kind of bringing this into a relationship aspect, they're either going to come along with you or they're not. And can you be okay that there's going to be this growth in yourself when you're doing your healing, when you're, doing all of these things, that they're going to either choose to come along with you or choose not to? And can you be okay with that? When she said that to me, I was so mad because I was like, what do you mean? I thought she was there to help me fix my relationship. And I was like, what did I hire you for? Love her to death. And then I realized I was like, oh, okay, like we get to grow and we get to change and we get to evolve in this place of our love. And, you know, for me, that relationship didn't last. It was 6 years, but I was going, and I was realizing something along the way for me, and a pattern that I had in love with myself and in relationships is I kept always coming back down to planet Earth to try to save people, to try to fix them, I saw so much potential in people. And then I realized I was like, oh, I'm doing that shit with myself too. I'm holding myself back. I'm coming back down. I'm playing small in that way. And love is such a high frequency. It's such this like radiant, potent thing. And it's like when we can just know at the end of the day that everything is love, that we are all love and light and all of this like beautiful madness, then it's safe to go to those places. It's safe to be loved. It's safe to express. It's safe to be free, and that you don't have to come back always to try to bring that person along with you. It's like you get to be free in that. And, you know, of course we want them to come along the way, but it's like we're so worthy of either way.
That's such a fresh perspective that I haven't heard talked about before, right? Because love is definitely a risk. And even with where you started in this conversation today of I don't actually know, yes, she's my friend, but I don't actually know what I'm showing up for today. I assume it's something about love, and all the other speakers, not all the speakers are my friends, not even people I know personally. And yet they still all showed up too. And I think it's a testament to your character and who you are about love that allowed you to show up. And it was something that you said too, is there's safety in trusting who you are with risk. And love is a risk. And, you know, I experienced a loss in my family very recently with my grandmother, and you don't spend your whole life in that relationship, you know, with Grams being like, I love you so much, please don't die. Right? You don't spend the whole relationship focusing on what you think is the end result, what you know is the end result. We all die, we're all going to expire, right? We entertain and engage in that relationship from the awareness of there is risk involved here. I could get hurt. We allow ourselves to feel safe in the moment. And that's what I hear you saying, and trusting yourself with who you are about love allows you to take risks.
Mm-hmm. And I think what we think sometimes is that love is going to bring that safety, that security. It's going to allow us to feel something even deeper and even bigger than what we can feel ourselves, which I think is bullshit, because it's like we have to be able to find that in ourselves first, and then let love be an amplifier of it. That safety, that security, that feeling into our emotions rather than just bypassing things and all of, you know, that stuff that we tend to do, shut things down and kind of go. It's feeling into that and knowing that we have to find all of this within, because yeah, you might lose the relationship, or you know, the love might dissipate or whatever it is. But if you know that you always still have you, then that love gets to be an amplifier of what you already feel within.
Yeah, it's like we're responsible for the container of love within ourselves, and what we allow ourselves to put in it, what we forbade ourselves to put in it, also the things that we give or you know, take away from it at the same time. And I feel like that's such a powerful transition into my question for you, my next question, which is, what does love mean to you then?
Love for me, like the first thing that's coming to mind is expansion. It's expanding who we are. It's expanding who we are internally in a partnership, in any relationship. I think, you know, sometimes our first thing with love is either self-love or love in a like romantic partnership, but it's love in your friendships. It's love with your dogs. It's that feeling of connection, of being seen, of being supported, of being heard. And all of that is an expansion, again, of what we can feel within when we feel that connection to ourselves, when we feel that connection. You know, for me, love is really feeling a connection to my body and into my emotions. Like I said before, rather than just trying to like move through them or shift through them, when I can love me for every little part of me, whether it's my favorite part of me or whether it's the part where I'm like, okay, like that's just another part of me. It's letting myself be with that as I'm expanding.
Yeah, and I feel like that actually plays off of what you were talking about before too, because connecting with someone is a risk. Right? You could get denied, you could get hurt, right? Like we're talking about. And also expanding ourselves, connecting to ourselves, that is also a risk, right? I mean, both of us are coaches, and it is a risk for you to go in on everything that you believe to be true about who you are in that particular instance, in that moment in time, and say to yourself, I want something different. And so what I hear you saying for you is that love means to you acknowledging that, yeah, it is a risk, but at the end of it, you get to decide what that risk maybe versus reward is going to bring to you. You know, are you going to turn away from it because it is a risk, because you don't have it all figured out? Or are you going to allow yourself to walk with the risk and embrace expansion, embrace connection, and not have to have it all figured out?
It's letting it be messy. I feel like that's where the beauty is in all of this. Is just like I said, when I was coming down, I'm like, all right, releasing the control of like what I need, you know, what I needed to know or whatever. And it's just letting it be this beautiful ride. Like love is such a journey. And, you know, sometimes you got to drive up this massive ass mountain, and sometimes, you know, you got to stop and fix the tire along the way. And it's like, who are you as those things are happening? How can you love yourself? How can you love your relationship? How can you love every little piece, even when everything is beautiful and you're grooving and you're moving? And then, you know, how are you showing up when, yeah, maybe shit's hitting the fan and you're like, oh, fuck, like this is happening and we got a lot going on here. It's like, how do you choose to respond when life is amazing in your love and your relationships, and when, you know, maybe it's a shitstorm? And how can you be with yourself and be with those emotions that come with that, rather than judging them or making a story out of them or trying to bypass them?
Yeah, and I think that's something that we forget about too, is that sometimes we can have judgment about love, not only with what we're doing with it with ourselves, but also how we're getting it from other people, or what it is we're willing to share with other people. So that actually segues into my next question for you, which is, what does love mean to you about other people?
What does love mean to me about other people? I feel like, honestly, like being expressed, like being seen, being supported by those people that you're around. You know, like we all come from so many different places in life. We all have all of these different stories, and, you know, maybe it's some things that you agree with other people, and some things that maybe, you know, you don't. It's like, how do you express, even if you don't agree with somebody or believe in what they're saying or whatever, like how can you show them love and compassion rather than coming at it from like, oh, they think this or they think this? I mean, I think even back into, you know, our little people inside of us, and like how much love we can have for them. And whenever I'm seeing something, you know, in love in somebody else and that ripple that they're creating, I'm also looking and seeing like their little person inside of them too, that might be scared, that might be, you know, afraid, that might be super bold or whatever it is. And when I see that, and how I see love in other people is letting it bring us together into a community, rather than us trying to live into this place where we're trying to one up the person or we're trying to be better. I feel like, especially in this online world, sometimes we get into this like chase a little bit, where we're like kind of running and trying to prove ourselves. And it's like, what is there truly to prove if we all are connected into a community and we can be open and vulnerable and share the real shit that's going on, rather than trying to be in this like dick swinging contest where we're, you know, figuring out who's better than the other. So for me, it's really like in other people, this like ripple in how we show up and support one each other, and being like holding hands, being community, rather than judging each other or trying to be better than one another, or thinking all of these things, and just being more one than anything.
Yeah, so it's like this concept of not separating self from other, making any one of us better or worse, right? And how truly a courageous act it is to be seen, to let your walls down. And what I hear you saying with that, so obviously, you know, interject and like correct me if I'm wrong, is that there's a true appreciation for love when we realize that we're allowing ourselves to be seen, but also to see somebody else in wherever they are at with being seen, right? Like it's not up for us to discern or to judge whether somebody is being their most authentic self or not being their most authentic self, because that's just a projection that we're putting onto them. It's allowing ourselves to see someone in whatever place they're in, whatever evolution that they're at with themselves, as, wow, that really is a risk to allow someone to see you this way. So instead of judging it, which you may have, which is fine, right? Because there is judgment in love. It's discernment for what feels good to you, discernment of how you feel about what somebody else is offering you. But the real true risk in celebration, it sounds like, of allowing each other to be seen and acknowledging how truly courageous that is.
hmm And you know what's so interesting? So something, as you introduced in it that I do is breath work.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the ways that we can connect and see each other so deeply, like one of the exercises that we do sometimes is where we just stare into the person that you were just breathing with in a group session, staring into their eyes. And doing that for a long, extended period of time. I remember when I first did a session like that, and I was like, this is really uncomfortable just to stare into somebody's eyes and make that contact and just let that person feel seen and heard, because it's like we want to look away, or like, oh gosh, am I staring too long? Is this like too long of a hug? Is this whatever? And we start to create these stories. So it's like our human connection at the core, like we need to see each other. We need to like hold that space for the other person to be seen, and just go into the core of people's magic and their gifts and their love and express that and hold that space for them. And so that came into my mind when you were saying that, because it's like in those situations, even when you're just holding space for someone, not even fucking saying anything, just staring into their eyes and being like, in your mind saying like, you are so seen, you are so held, doing that for somebody else. But honestly, even looking in the mirror every single day for ourselves and being like, I see you, I hear you, I feel you, I love you. We don't do that because we're like, Erin's weird and I got other shit I gotta go do for the rest of the day, on to the next thing. But that connection into ourselves, like that's where you feel a lot of fucking love. I'm like, oh, like I do love me, I am here, I get to feel into my body rather than just move away from that place.
Yeah, and that actually reminds me of a similar experience that I share with you, not about breath work, but when I was in my coach certification program, one of the practices that we did in the room, which is incredibly fucking uncomfortable, terrible, I hated it, but can see the fruitfulness in it, right? Being a coach and having distance and separation from that period of my life, which was to stand in front of the room and have your peers read back to you what they believed your essence was. You didn't say anything. You just stood. You weren't allowed to cross your arms because that's a way of closing yourself off, right? You had to fully express yourself to be seen, which means just allow yourself to be in your personhood. And the thing that tripped me out about it, and the real, I feel, golden nugget of that practice is very similar to what you're saying, but to give it a little bit of elevation for those that are either watching or listening, is not only the awareness that other people are seeing you, but in that moment, the awareness of you being able to notice that they are seeing you, that they're reading their energetic and authentic response to who you are, just in your natural essence, in your natural energy. And bringing this full circle, which I don't know if that was your intention or not, but you did so eloquently and beautifully, is this idea of love being a risk that allows us to take on expansion, allows us to see what we want for our own connection. The fruitfulness of that is really being seen. The risk is not only in being seen, but your awareness that you are intentionally doing it. Because when we allow ourselves to acknowledge, holy fuck, I am letting these people basically, quote unquote, judge me or give me their perspective on who they think I'm being and who I'm not being, we are aware when we're doing that. And that can be super intimidating, and that can take us out of love. And it can become a tool if we allow it, like a muscle, if we allow it, that we can build upon, that not only allows us to be capable of being seen, right? Because we're aware of it, but also allows us to, as you said before, share in the celebration of another person doing that, and how fucking complex and a mind fuck that can really be.
And I think too, like one other piece that like kind of again ties that together is like, how are you receiving that love then as it comes to you? Because it's like, yeah, we can sit there and take it and just kind of maybe, there's definitely been times if we receive compliments or love, we've had our walls up around it because we've had this story that it's not safe to do that, or okay, yeah, I'll just kind of take that in. But like actually fully receiving that love in your body and being with that, that's even really fucking uncomfortable too. I had all these stories in my past around receiving. I thought that, you know, I was going to have to justify it. Like I couldn't, like if I would have stood up in that room years ago, I would have been like, oh, but thank you. Like you do the same thing and this and this and this, and not like just letting it, like letting myself be a vessel and just taking it in. And so I think, you know, with love and the expression and being seen and all of those things, also receiving it and fully just being with it in your body and honoring the fuck out of yourself when you're taking that in, rather than trying to make a story or justify it or put it back on people. It's like, let yourself receive the love.
Yeah. And there's like a part in there that I don't even know if you align with this or not, but it's kind of what I pulled out of what you're saying is there is no failure in love. It's a risk that we're putting ourselves out there, and just kind of interwoven into your beautiful message again, it's an opportunity, to connect with other people, to get something in return, right? And that's okay. We're pack animals. We're all looking for support. We're all looking for community and belonging, and there's nothing wrong with that. And even when you're in a relationship that ends, and whether it ends poorly or whatever, if it ends, like even the relationship with my grandmother, where it feels like an ending, it doesn't actually end. There are things that you can glean from that. You know, there are, even in the example where I was explaining being in front of the room and people are telling me the essence that they were receiving just from my being, that there weren't a lot of, you know, terrible things, but there were some things that people can say to you or you receive from someone that's like, oh, that's not what I want. That's not who I want to be. And there's the opportunity to really reframe that, to say, well, what can I took a risk. So what can I allow myself to receive from that that's expansive for me, that's connective not only to that person, but to me and with me. And that can allow me to maybe reframe that and to receive something from that in love. And I think that we often look at the end of love or, you know, a failed relationship as that there was nothing to take from that, but there's always something to take. There's always room for compassion and empathy with ourselves. And, you know, being seen is not just for other people and how they see you. It's taking that in, sure, but ultimately deciding how you want to see yourself. Is it with compassion? Is it with continual judgment? Is it, you know, insert whatever you're receiving from this here. But I really, truly believe that there is no failure in love. There's always a lesson in it. And there's always something that I feel makes us that much more inclined to actualizing ourselves and to standing in our power and to not only having respect for who we are, but respect for other people.
Yeah, definitely. Everything I feel like is a mirror reflection, a lesson, something for us to take along the way. And when we can look at it that way, rather than to like, oh, well, I wasted 6 years of my life, like, well, shit, you know, like I feel like it's just allowing it to be a beautiful growth experience and taking in, again, whether it's the end of a relationship or whether it's a new partnership or whether it's just like a pattern that you notice in whatever way, being more of this like gentle observer and of all of this, especially when you think of love, because if we try to shift anything from like fear, judgment, guilt, it's like we can't. We like, if we can shift our thoughts and our beliefs from this place of like, okay, I love you, I honor you in this, I see you in this belief self thing, then we can shift it easier. Otherwise, then we start to like loop back into these patterns because we're getting, you know, some emotional charge if we're not shifting it from a place of love. If we're shifting the judgment that, you know, whatever, we should be doing more in our relationship or this keeps happening to me, this is where we start to do, you know, this like looping in this pattern. There's, you know, the thing called secondary gain, which I'm sure like you're familiar with as well, where we're getting some emotional charge from that. And so for me, it's like when I've been able to shift things in my life or understand the lesson or the pattern or whatever from a place of love, I'm like, okay, like I get to see how this is growing me rather than trying to recreate the scenario in my life to get something from it.
Yes, so good. And so my next question, because I feel like this just flows, everything is flowing perfectly, is how does love influence what you do as a business owner?
That's a good question. These are so good. I feel like I'm on like some like pageant stage of like, oh, what is the answer to this question?
Thank you.
These are great. Okay, so how does love influence what I do as a business owner? I feel like everything in my business is heart-centered. Like, I'm here to show people like what the fuck is possible. And that's coming from a place of love. It's not coming from this place of like ego, or I have to, be super successful, or I have to do all these things. Like, we're here as coaches, as influencers, as whatever it is that you do in this world, to provide a ripple effect in people's lives. And love for me as a business owner, it's like, if I can change somebody's life and then they go on to change 5 more lives, or their relationship gets better and there's a ripple effect that's happening, like, that's fucking love. Like, that is so deep because it's transformative, it's powerful, it's potent, it expands and changes the world. And when one of us heals, it's like we're all in this collective rising and growing together. And so, yeah, my whole business is based on love. It's not based on this like, oh, I need you to see me and feel me and cheer me on every single day and have all these like bajillions of followers. It's like, no, I'm here to provide a service that changes your fucking life, that serves the world from a place of love, from a place of compassion, from a place of like surrender and fully being in community together. Yeah, so I feel like it impacts everything that I do, because I want everyone to be able to feel that way too.
Yes. And this is something that I share the sentiment with you completely. And something that I always say to my clients anytime I take a new client on is I just really pause the entirety of the conversation and reflect and acknowledge that this is not just a relationship between me and you. This is a relationship between me and you and your kid and your husband or your spouse or your mother and every your fellow employees, your staff, whomever is in your life, because and what I feel like I hear you saying is love is a risk for everyone. And yeah, stuff may not go as planned. Yeah, it may be a whomping, flat ass failure in your eyes, whatever the connection or the relationship is. But there's a certain amount of respect that goes with love, because it's a risk for everyone. It's a risk for everyone to be so vulnerable in that way. That is brave. It's very brave to open yourself up to another person. It's very brave to be seen in the world as exactly who you are. It's very brave to take on expansion from everything you've ever known to be true about you in your life and say, I think I might want something a little bit different. I don't really think this is working for me. This job, this relationship, this way of being, this fucking outfit I have on today, or my haircut. There really is a degree of respect that I think sometimes we forget that is involved with every decision that we make, every decision that we don't make, as well as those that are going on around us. I talked a little bit about this in one of a conversation I was in recently, a different summit that I was on, and I was saying that we forget to pause every now and again and to look around us and to say, whoa, like, look at the blades of grass. That's fucking crazy. The fact that I walk outside and I don't die because I can breathe oxygen, the fact that my bills are paid, that in this moment, this particular space and time, I was not a mistake. I was on purpose, and I get to exist amongst all of the enormity that exists in this time, in this space, in this universe at the exact same time. And I think that we forget and undermine that we can love that. It's not stupid. It's not frilly. It's not, poo-poo. Your head is not in the clouds. You're not, living in a dream world. To pause every now and again and to respect your human experience, somebody else's human experience, and that we're all having it together.
Mm-hmm. And with that too, the first thing that kind of pops into my mind is, our subconscious wants to tell us that it's not safe to do that. Like, we have been programmed since we've been babies to keep focused on what's next. And there's so much fear in slowing down and just connecting into the present moment, because we get into this place of judgment, like, oh, I should be doing more, or I should be moving on to the next thing. Like, I can't fucking slow down and look at the blades of glass. Like, you see my to-do list? There's 25 things I got to do, lady. Like, what are you talking about? And it's like, that's the stories that we tell ourselves. And I think sometimes it's the hardest thing for us, like, when it comes into love too, is just being present, just being grounded, because our minds are going 1,000 miles a minute trying to think of everything that we have to do, and that grounding, that connection to ourselves and that connection to others. Like, that's a deep love, and being present, even for like a few moments a day where you can just center yourself into that and look out and around you. Like you said, it's not fluffy or woo-woo. It doesn't make you some like whatever it is that you think that it makes you. It's it makes you present and a human. And like, you gotta honor that we're fucking humans. Like, we are here. This is a blessing. This is amazing. And just slow down. Remember that's safe to slow down too.
Yeah. Yes. I that is so important, especially with what we were talking about again at the very beginning with love being a risk, because we are going to avoid the things that are going to make us uncomfortable, especially if it's in our subconscious, especially if we learned before that that's not safe to do, right? And if we allow ourselves to just pause, and like you did, and said, okay, well, what is expected of me on this? I don't really know, but I can trust myself. I can trust myself. You could have got on this conversation, been like, you know what, this is actually not something I want to be a part of. So feel free not to air me in it. That's your choice with love, right? That's I think something that we place love as a frilly feeling, not as a choice, not as a reflection, not as pausing, not as being present, and not as taking the minute to look around and say, you know, what am I really afraid of here? Well, I'm afraid I'm not going to, you know the questions. And I'm afraid that my answers are going to be, you know, subpar. I'm afraid that I'm not going to make any sense. I'm afraid I'm going to talk myself in circles, which I'm afraid of all the time. But it's becoming present to that, pausing and slowing down and allowing ourselves to, I know we do because we're coaches, but ask ourselves, okay, well, what really is going on here? Right? What really are you afraid of in this moment? And discerning that maybe it's not something that I need to run away from. Maybe it is something that isn't so much bigger than me. And no matter what happens, I can love me, I can love the output. And that actually makes me far more powerful than whatever the fuck I'm afraid of.
And when you said that too, it's like, it's so this trust that we have within ourselves and honoring those emotions that came up. Because when you're like, I'm gonna ask you questions about love, like I instantly was like, me? Like, love? What do you want me to like? What do you want me to share about? And so I'm like, okay, let me be with that part of me that's starting to come online in my body that's like, what the fuck am I to talk about love? Like, I'm a business coach. Like, I don't know. Like, all right, I'll spit out some shit and then honoring that piece of me rather than being like, hey, you know, like trying to have this like little fight with this gremlin that's coming up right now. It's like, I'm gonna put my little gremlin in the seat next to me, like, hey, I see you, I love you, I can, you know, support you in this, but you know, we're gonna go along on this ride and we're just going to trust ourselves. But what happens is we don't trust ourselves so often because maybe we haven't followed through, or you know, we fucked up in the past, as we all have. And it's like, again, moving this in love and being okay, like being aware of the parts of you that I would say that come online when you start to feel maybe that uncomfortable or that risk or the unknown, which I feel like everything is unknown, and just letting that be okay and letting that be, again, the fact that you're human and that not everything is going to be this like super comforting ride where we have all the answers. But if you can trust you and all of that, that's where all the magic I feel like happens.
Woo! Love it. So freaking good. And I want to honor you too, just for owning and outing yourself about, you know, I'm a business coach. What the fuck do I know about love? And for everybody that's watching you and seeing your beautiful, beaming, bright face, or even listening to you and just hearing it reflected through the tone of your voice and the power behind what you're saying is such a great reflection to people who feel the same, you know, like, you know, I'm an accountant, I'm not a therapist. How can I talk about love? You know, we are all love, as you so beautifully put, born into this world, love. Like, we didn't know anything else. That's how we respond to our parents as a child, right? I love you, I cling to you, I know you, right? That you're the person that makes me feel safe because I don't know what that actually even means yet. And you are just the full embodiment from start to finish, from what you said at the very beginning, of allowing yourself to take risks and allowing yourself to embrace the sides of you that are like, who the fuck am I? I'm so scared. And I'm not really sure, maybe don't have complete certainty, uncomfort, you know, discomfort outside of my comfort zone, and still show up from a place that says, I believe in what's possible. And because I believe in what's possible, I'm going to ground into the very thing that I know that roots me into that belief. And that's trusting myself. And when I trust myself, I only am capable of doing that when I love myself. Wow.
Nice drop.
Wow. No, I serious goosebumps. Thank you so much for all of that. So people are listening to you now and they're like, okay, I want that loving ass business coach in my life. Reiki healer, alchemizer, all the shit, NLP practitioner, does all the things. What do you have going on? Where can they find you?
Yes, it's erinnicolecoaching.com, Burnout Breakthrough Podcast, and my Facebook community, and you can pretty much find me anywhere at Erin Nicole Coaching.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
I just love you. You are just such a bright light in this world, and I'm so grateful that she's my friend. For all of you that are listening, any single time I have something going on that feels like it's the end of the world, I can always count on Erin to either send me a crazy meme, a funny anecdote, or anything that just grounds me back into everything she's talking about here, that she is love, I am love, it is the only truth. So thank you again. I love you.
Thank you. I love you.
And a big thank you to you, the audience, for joining us. Please see the show notes for a special freebie from me if you're tuning in from YouTube, and for Erin's guest links on how to connect with her, what she's got going on. Stay in tune with her. And because love is meant to be shared and sharing is caring, if you like this, if there was any piece or part of this that was meaningful for you or impactful for you or stood out, please feel free to share this with a friend. And if you have any questions, as I said, use the links in the show notes, get at us, and we'll get back to you with any of those. Otherwise, thank you for stopping by. Be good to yourself, for fuck's sake, and we'll talk to you soon.